Okay, so welcome here. So today what we're going to talk about. Okay, so welcome. So today we're going to talk about is sorry, I'm just testing right now. It was not supposed to be live. And obviously I don't know what I'm doing. If he goes back, anyone? That's weird. Oh, it's public. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm going to stop this one here. Mike, are you still in or not? Hello. I'm just testing right now. It was not supposed to be live, and then, I mean, it was not supposed to be public. So, anyway, hi, everybody. It was not the plan. Um, I don't know what to do now anymore. Do you see me delayed or not? It's very hard to know. Okay. The best thing are unplanned. That's true too. Okay, so hey guys, so usually this is part of my JC live stream membership, but since I made a mistake here and I just started it, we can go as is. So in the chat here, we're going to do, it's my first time, so bear with me, you know. I don't know why. I don't see the chat on my OBS. But sometime a hiccup seems okay for me. Okay, good. So what do you want to talk about? It's completely unplanned. It was a bug of my part. I kind of started the stream. I'm trying to clean up my screen here. And then it started like this. So if anybody want to talk about something, feel free to talk. I mean, feel free to let me know in the chat. I can see the chat. How long have I been programming in Rust? A good question. Started probably 2019, I guess. Something like that. 2019 and before, so I started my career at Netscape. Back, I was actually an internship at Microsoft back in the late 90s. I went to Netscape. If you do not know Netscape, do not say you do not know it. It makes me very sad, but it was a very cool stuff at the time. And then I did a lot of Java at Netscape, and then I moved to Oracle when I did Oracle Mobile. And then I did Collaboration Suite, and then I started my consulting company, Bryce Snow, in 2009. And so we do big apps with small team. We did a lot of Java on the back end, JavaScript on the front end. We moved to TypeScript on the front end, TypeScript and Node.js on the back end, actually, which was, interestingly enough, a little bit more performant than Java. And at the time, back in 2015, 18, or whatever, it was more maintained than Java. Java kind of went down a little bit, and now it's picking back up. And then in 2019, even 2018, I started Rust. And usually I looked at Rust a long time ago. So usually I look at the technology, I let it sleep, and then I look 6 months later, let it sleep, and then 6 months later. So I'm trying to not be too emotionally attached with things. And then actually at the beginning, I was excited with Swift when they just started Swift. And I bought my first iPhone because of Swift, is how geek I am. And so I don't remember the years, but that was a while back, at least 10 years ago. And then I started to look at Rust, look at Swift. And at the time, I thought that Swift was going to be the one picking up. And in fact, Apple did the Apple thing. It became a very Apple thing and not really for server side and so on. And then when I look back at Rust, it was kind of a no-brainer that the language and the tool set and everything was very well thought out. And so I invested my whole company in Rust in many ways. So I have a team of developers. Some of them are in China. I have my Bryce No company, which we do big app with small team, and I do architecture services. And then since 2019, 2023 or whatever, I focused everything on Rust. And I invested on Rust since 2019, 18 or something like that. We will have live coding. Thank you, Solda. Kane? Yes, thank you for knowing Netscape. That's cool. And everybody knows Netscape. Yeah, it's like in my channel, I should make it a requirement. If you don't know Netscape, too bad. You cannot be a member. And any other question? We will have live coding. So yes, so my goal is to have the membership. You know, that is the current goal with the live, except today was a big bug because I was just testing my stuff and then I was live. So I decided to not stop. But in the membership, I will probably have a session this Friday at noon Pacific time. And my current plan, I'm just starting everything. So bear with me, guys. If you have feedback, you can let me know, if I do the wrong thing or stuff for my members and so on. But my plan is to do a poll of kind of 3 topics that people want to talk about. Could be more on the architecture side, could be more on the on live coding of an examples or this kind of things, or explaining the Rust web app blueprint. And then whatever topic will win, we'll talk about this. And then depending on the chat, then we'll do other kind of topic. How often? You often mention design pattern. Which are some of your favorite most used? I struggle with state pattern. Yeah, well, yeah, the state pattern, builder pattern, I wouldn't, so I made a video for that, and it also allows me to crystallize the stuff. I wouldn't go too deep into it. It's something which is very kind of advanced in a way, and it can be kind of distracting and it's nice, but like, for example, in all my production code, I'm not really using it. And sometimes I say, well, I might use it there. And then it can become a little bit complex. Yeah. So I'm trying to avoid that, even if it's great to have that as part of our tool belt. So if you have a good use case, usually it's a good one. If not, then don't sweat it. It's not something that you have to master. Do you miss anything in Rust, say, for instance, higher kind of types? Well, sometimes, so like for me, there's no perfect language. So that doesn't exist. And sometimes we tech people get emotional with languages and we want to have the universal hammer. There's something in our technologies that always want to either believe in the universal hammer or either believe that we are creating the universal hammer. I don't believe that that is a thing. I think that the technology are good for some. There's more bad technologies than good technology, first. There's many good technologies. Some are doing the same thing and they are as good as the other one. So I'm not a fan of the Go language and the whole Go things, but Go works. I mean, it's a solid stuff. And if people write their server in Go, there's nothing wrong with it. I would say that writing it in Ruby, that is where I think at least in the Silicon Valley. So I'm based in San Francisco and stuff, and I've seen so many companies going to the Ruby route. And it's a little bit unfortunate because it was a wrong tool for the job, and people brute force it. And if you brute force anything, you could write a server in Visual Basic, I guess, but it's kind of off a little bit. Yeah. A lot of time I look at Node.js in the same way, and I was a little bit wrong on that because first, the TypeScript, when it comes, it's not fully typed. It's not sound, it's not like Rust or whatever, but it made the things a little bit more production, large-scale code. And then there's also one thing that not a lot of people talk about the Node.js and the things, but when we started to move Java to Node.js on the backend, one of the reasons it was TypeScript, because without TypeScript that wouldn't have made sense. And then the other reason was, it was at, I think, 2014, I don't remember when it was, that Google say, for V8, we are going to treat the Node.js use case as a first-class citizen. So before it was just a Node.js hacking V8 in a way. I mean, hacking, and not hacking, but so that created the whole thing. But then once you have the VM people really taking seriously your use case, that become good. And again, Node.js is not perfect. There's a lot of things that are frustrating. But at the end of the day, that is an okay technology, I guess, to write things. But now I prefer much more Rust. I also like to design patterns, but I'm struggling implementing them in Rust. Yeah, so this question is interesting. My take in Rust is we need to do a brain reset. Yes, we have been trained in Rust in Java world and stuff of inheritance and always having this inheritance. We knew it was kind of wrong, but our brain kind of get wired into this mode. So I think it's good to kind of let that go and embrace the new sum type and product type. And sum type is a union type in a way. And then the composition for the product type, to product stuff. And things change, and it's not the same way. Sometimes it might look a little bit redundant, because we have an enum, and then the variant has the same name as the type inside, so people make fun of that. But one thing I've realized is, over the last 3-4 years, I've rewrote all my utilities in Rust. Even if it's a 1,000 line of code, I rewrite it. I rewrite everything. I'm more productive now in Rust than in Node.js because of the tooling. I do cargo watch or Bacon. Actually, Bacon doesn't have install. So I do cargo watch install -- pass dot. And that allows me to create my little command line for me. And then I can use it anywhere. And it's like almost creating like Python. So I become much more efficient now in Rust. And then the more you do Rust, the more you think about the design pattern of Rust. And there's something magical into the way that the types make you think, that the code is more robust somehow. And I'm not sure why, but even code that I come back 6 months later or 9 months later, I find my ducks. And every time I come back to a Node.js or back in the day in Java, it was always painful. Somehow I lose my ducks. So that is the thing, is there's something in the typing system and everything, which is put a little bit the cost up front, but then you get it back quickly. Your advice on getting a job in Rust. So the funny thing is, Bryce knows. So I don't have any magic answer right now on the Rust side, on the Rust job. I believe that Rust is going to be the language that are going to be the more significant in the next 5 decades. Just because of the nature of Rust, which is a very unique language because it combines memory safety and thread safety that nobody talks about. But in Java, you have memory safety, but it's not thread safe. And so one of my most embarrassing bugs for a client back in 2012 or whatever is I was using the Java date formatter, whatever. So you create your date formatter, and then you put it somewhere and you say, well, now that I created, I say the format, I should be able to format my date. And why will the date formatter will keep some states inside? It's like for me, I couldn't compute it. The whole string builder and string buffer, I get it. But on this one, I say, well, you cannot. And then actually, it was not thread safe. But nothing in the Java language told me it was not thread safe. So we had a bug later, and it was an embarrassing bug. With Rust, you can do that. This is huge value. And so one of the reasons why I look at Rust, it was back in 2018, 19 and stuff, in a production matter, was I was doing medical applications. So I work a lot in medical high compliance application. And in one of the use case, we had a lot of data coming from devices, okay, IoT devices. And it's almost time series. And we needed to process those and all this kind of thing to put them in Parquet files or whatever. And doing that in JavaScript is kind of odd because when you have binary types, it's not really friendly and it's not really the right language. And even in Java, you pay a huge tax in a way of memory for the garbage collecting and stuff. So I wanted to do that in C++. And then I had my team and I look at C++, I say, oh my God, it's a minefield. Yeah. And I have the greatest respect for good C++ developers, but I didn't feel even myself to get into the C++ and doing multi-threaded kind of things. And even simple multi-threaded in C++, I think I need 5-10 years of experience in C++. There's too many minefield. And so when I was looking at it, I kind of looked back at Rust because I was looking before at Rust as well. And then I kind of got it. And I was like, oh my God, it's magical. Yeah, now I can tell my team if they learn Rust, if the thing compile, then the things will be very efficient and will be very thread safe. Yeah? Not only memory safe, but thread safe. And obviously, it's the only language that has a garbage collector at compile time. Yeah, so that gives us a lot of things. When can we expect a new, how many people are here? I have no clue. I'm learning the whole stuff here. So I'm like really a newbie into this. 32 people. That's pretty cool. So when can we expect a new video on Rust 10x Web Apps? That is a very good question. And in fact, relatively soon, within weeks at most. And the reason why is because actually I have clients now that we're developing and we're helping them to develop Rust servers. And the way we work at Bryce-No, my company, Bryce-No, is that was my approach for the last, since 2009. I'm not a typical manager. I'm like a coder manager or coder architect, where I take the hit on me to clean up the mess and to decide the architecture and what to use where. And then I have my developers, and obviously it's collaborative, but I have my developers and say, hey, here's a blueprint, and go and create the application for the client. And then if something doesn't work or doesn't scale, let me know. And so I'm always like, the way I like to see it is I like to think of myself when we work with clients at N+2. And it's not because I'm smarter, it's just because that's my role in a way. And then I give the N+1 to my developers. And then the developers do the N for the client. And so like this, for the client, we can always be a very cutting edge. So we embrace Kubernetes very early in a very native way, and so on. So that is the thing that give us a lot of edge. And I had in Bryce-No a cloud starter, which was in Node.js, TypeScript, and so on. And so I had all of these kind of things built into my my blueprint. And it was very cool because you could reuse, it's a monorepo kind of style for a system, and it has a whole thing. It's actually, I can probably share something here. Let me see. Might be cool for just a little while. Okay, so that is, okay, so that is our architecture, yeah? So our architecture is a little bit like that, where we have, when we deploy a web server, yeah, this one I cannot. But when we deploy a web server, okay, I'm going to change screen a little bit. Sorry about that. It's going to be cooler with time. Okay, I think that this one is better. Okay, so when we deploy a production application, and so the thing here is the Rust web app. In a way, it looks like it's a little kind of Rust web app, but it's sold out as a multi-service kind of things. I do not like, and I don't want to be too emotional, but I actually hate the macro service terminology, because it's not about macro services, it's about multi-services. Doesn't matter the size of the services. We shouldn't be discriminatory to say, well, if you have a lot of little services, it's much better than if you have big services. Big services are bad architecture. That doesn't make any sense. A good architecture is about putting the right thing at the right place. It's not about following some dogma or whatever. So the architectures that we have is often like that, where we have the Kubernetes here as a runtime, the cloud runtime in many ways. We have everything in a queue and message bus. We're using Valky, actually Redis Stream or Valky Stream, because it has a very cool things for queue with different views and so on. And then we have this architecture where we have the front-facing services, which is basically the services that have the RPC, which is REST or JSON RPC or Google RPC or whatever. And then we have some backend services over there, and then we have the message queue. And the goal here is to avoid as much as possible or at all that services talk to each other. So service 1 doesn't talk to service 2, service 2 doesn't talk to service 3. What they do is they send events to the message queue, and then they read event from the message queue. And so this way here, it's a little bit harder, I guess, to get started with, but like with Rust, once you start it this way, it scales much better. So that is a way that we have been building our Rust web app. And the Rust web app is basically here. That is the Rust web app. And then services will be, doesn't even have to be a web app. Services, they're just connecting to the Redis stream or the Valky stream, and they get their job. And the whole goal for each services is to be self-feeding and self-healing. And once you have a service which is self-feeding and self-healing, then it scales very well. So I can go hours and hours, and that will be probably on our live stream, but that is a little bit our stuff. And this is how the Rust web app fits in. And that is where I'm going to make more videos about that. So I'm trying to go here through the questions. So like this, sorry. So getting a job on Rust, I'm sorry, I'm coming back to this question. I don't think I don't have any way right now. The thing I would say is, connect with people. If I know a job, I will post it somewhere in my Discord or things. But look for a job. I think is going to be promising, but you have to be practical as well. Yeah. So if you have to find a job in Go or whatever, or in Java or Node.js, you do it and keep learning Rust, because you will eventually find one. I came up with the idea to rewrite the PHP Laravel monolithic app with more performant language. Does Rust has a Go queue scheduler mailing package? I don't know about that. So does Rust has good queue scheduler, mailer, and auth package? So there's a lot of things there. So the mailer, I don't know. I will mailing the code to mail is super simple. In any language, is always 2 lines. But mailing is super hard because of all the spam. So everybody is making sure that the IP address, for example, AWS, do not want their IP address to be tainted. So they add a whole kind of process and stuff. And so that is what makes it difficult to send email. I would assume that in Rust, there's a crate to send an email, SMTP. But then sometimes there might be a REST API to send an email, which might be even better. And the queues, so in Rust, we have the whole, like in Go, I guess, the whole MPSC or MP multi-producer, single consumer, or multi-producer, multi-consumer, and so on, yeah? And with Tokyo, we can broadcast. With Flume, there's other values and so on. So there's quite a bit of good libraries to build event-based kind of things. And it's very, and Rust is a very friendly language for that. So I would say you don't really need an actor framework. You just need to use those MPSC or MC or whatever. And so those guys to be able to communicate things. And it's more about the patterns, less than the crate for the queues. For the scheduler, that is a good question. I'm not sure. So I haven't looked, and that is a good question because scheduler, I mean, you can implement it, but it's nice if there will be one that does that for us. And again, the message passing stuff is very cool because, for example, in the scheduler, you can have a scheduler in one task or one thread or one task, and then just sending events, and then people get the events and they subscribe it. So that simplifies a lot of things. Yeah. Thierry, do you think CS student, it's a I did? Yeah, so we're all biased. Yeah. I will say, oh, you added first, learning Rust first. So one of the things I wanted to do when I started my channel and stuff is to make this point, is to make the point that Rust is a very good language to learn first. And I do think that, like, for example, I would say something else. I would say learn Python and Rust. I would say that because then you have the whole spectrum, and Python, you can do everything, and every company thinks that they are developers because they code Python. And I actually like Python now. Before I miscategorized Python as I didn't understand that Python was more, and hopefully I'm not upsetting people here, but Python is a facade language and is a great language for, and it's not pejorative here, what I'm saying, but for occasional developers. So when I was working here with big medical company, I did a whole surgeon video platforms, did identification and all of that. I understood that people don't want to learn Java, Go, or whatever. They want to have a good, productive language because it's not their core job to do it, but they need to be able to do if, for loops and functions and everything. And Python and the whole ecosystem and the mindset of Python, it's awesome for that. A great example of Python and Rust and how they go well together is Polars. So the developer of Polars for me is one of my gods. I mean, Polars is a data frame and it's very well done, and it's done in Rust. And then he has done an API facade of it, which is what Python is for. So in Python, and it's super simple. So when I was showing, my client with the data, so we had all this video annotation, millions and stuff, and then I just show with API that you can download millions or 100 millions or whatever, 10 millions, and then put them in a Parquet file. So it's a little work, and then once you have in a Parquet file, you use Polars in Python to do the thing. And it works beautifully. And the beauty of that is you don't need to have, coders like us, professional. They can be data scientists or, other professions that have other expertise, but still have the benefit of code. So Python is pretty good. And so I would say as a first, do Rust as a first serious language to kind of design this kind of system, and then Python just to play and to understand, for loop closures and all these kind of things. Yeah. if you could go back, will you use CRM? No, okay. Okay. So first of all, I've never been a fan, and this is because I've been burned very bad with back in the days, so I come, Netscape, Oracle, and then I did Adobe. But at Oracle, we had the whole EGBs and all these kind of things. And every time someone is trying to create a layer to say you don't have to learn the layer below, you have to be worried about it. And EGBs back in the Sundays, Java days and stuff, that was the thing. Is and even Oracle was saying that is you don't need to learn SQL. You can, do the stuff, and then you get an object on a list, and then you add it to the list, and then you take this object and you say save, and then you add it to the container of the list. I mean, crazy magic. And then when you go to this level of magic of ORM, it adds so much complexity that the complexity doesn't go away. Yeah, it sticks there. Yeah, and so the trick here is to say, how we can. We want to have layer of abstraction, but without necessarily removing the concept of good engineering. So for me, I don't like ORM. The thing I've done here, so if you look at the last Rust web app, I'm using cQuery. So you have CORM, which is ORM. And the cool thing of this team here, the C guys, I don't they have a cQuery. And that is actually a query builder. And that is a pattern I like a lot, is to use query builder. So you still need to understand SQL, the join, and everything. It doesn't abstract that. And the goal here is you want to make this query building more composable. So that's why you have a query builder. There's a great library in Node.js, which is Next. So KNEX. And this is an awesome one. We've been using it. And what you do is you don't expose the query builder to all your application code. Yeah. What you do, and perhaps here, if I'm trying to. Oh, sorry, I'm getting confused with my own stuff. What you do, let me see if I have. Yeah, so that is a Rust web app in a way, at some point. And so what you do is, like in our Rust web app, inside core, you have your data and your things, and inside core, that is where you have the BMCs, the model controller, could be DAO, is the same thing. And then all your application code is using the core API, and they don't need to use the query builder. So you have this API that everybody calls, and that is your interface to everything. And then the fact that you are using SQLX or directly to the database, it doesn't really matter because people are calling this abstraction layer, which is the controllers. Yeah. Hopefully I answered this question. Yeah, C Haskell as a first base as before Rust. Yeah, that seems to be a pretty. The nice thing we see is that you will understand the why of Rust in a way. Yeah. So the funny thing is, when I was 14 years old, a long time ago, my very first programming language, when I was in France, was C, with a big, with not the big actually, it's a relatively small first official C black book. It was black and I think it was yellow letters or whatever. So I've ran and I created a little command line on MS-DOS stuff. Well, the face reveal, I already had some couple of face reveal before, but this one is a live and face reveal, yeah. So I've been mixing the videos, things. What do you think of Zig compared to Rust? And I see a new app regarding Zig. And I think that I think that Zig might have some benefits in some of 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 the things. I think that Rust has gained a momentum right now in big enterprises. Like, you have Google that on the Android side, you have Amazon that invested a lot in Rust, and you have Microsoft and all these kind of things. It's now it has crossed a chasm. I don't want to use this old term, but I think that Rust has crossed a chasm. I would have expected it to grow a little bit faster, but I think it's now is the next generation. Is a category of Go and everything, I think. Yeah, and then I think it will go higher. And the Linux kernel, yeah, I mean it's amazing here that we need to remember in the Linux there were no C++. C++ not allowed, and I think for good reason. Yeah, so and so. I mean, for good reason. I don't know because I'm not an OS, so I'm sorry, I'm scratch that. I'm not an OS developer, so I don't know if it was good. But when I hear Linux and why it forbids C++ in the Linux kernel, I understand its logic. Yeah, because sometimes the C++ kind of a kitchen sink kind of things, and then you want to be careful about this kind of stuff when you have something very efficient and very well thought out. But Rust is there, so this is huge, yeah, and I don't think, I mean, I might be completely wrong, but I will be completely wrong. I don't think that Zig has any shot to be in the Linux stuff. Yeah. So I think Rust is a different category. I'm not saying that Zig is back for everything. It's fine, but for me, it's a secondary language. It's not a primary language. What is the plugin you use for underlining? Oh yeah, so that is. So in this session here, I'm going to answer any question one by one, and then until people are tired of it, because I didn't have any agenda. Screen brush. So it's screen brush Mac. So it's this guy, very cool developer. I don't know why there's only. There's only 3.7 star because I think his stuff, the developer is awesome. And I had a bug at some point. It didn't draw the straight line. I sent an email and kind of fix it. It's awesome stuff. I love good software, and this one is a good one. It does what it does very well. I remember you made a short awesome app. Yeah. Yes, okay. I remember you made a short video about Awesome App, Tory App, and everything. Yeah, that would be probably alive. I have the code. I've rewrote, I spent quite a bit of 2024 rewriting the Awesome App to do what the stuff was with my GenAI crate, which is a chat app. Yeah, and it's using SQLite and everything. So I have the whole code. I need to clean it up before I can update the Awesome App. And right now I'm a little bit squeezed in time. And it's kind of a pity because it's actually, it follows this architecture, this one, but on the desktop side. And it's actually worked pretty nice. So one day I might do the demo of that and I might just release it. But I had some other stuff, which is kitchen sink. And so I need to remove all the fat in a way and making sure that people can consume it. Because right now it will be confusing, but it's pretty cool because it's a whole little app. Yeah. Now on the UI, I don't use, we have at Bryce Snow a unique way of doing UI. We do it with the native web components. And I never went into EXTJS, Sancha, Angular, and all these kind of things. We always stayed very close to the DOM and have a good patterns on top of the DOM. And with native web component, which is a custom element, you don't even need the shadow DOM. It works very well. But the problem is very unique. So it's like I was making this UI and I was like, well, people are going to get confused. So I need to think about it, how I can do that. But at some point, I want to release it because it's pretty cool. And it allows you, it's using my GenAI library to talk to any kind of AI, and you can change AI model and even AI providers at the middle of a conversation. So it's a pretty cute one. Yes, I actually learned C before at school. That's good. Yeah, no, C is a good stuff. My son is learning assembler right now because he's doing electronic engineer and stuff. So assembler is also good because you understand the register and stuff. And me, I'm not a OS developer. There's levels here where I'm not an expert on. Argue and question the correctness of Rust, but comment the safety of Rust. Yeah, I think I've looked at this stuff where it says that Rust is not fully correct or whatever. I think it's a little bit of nitpicking, honestly. They're probably right if you follow the stuff, and there might be a thing. I think one of the things was more kind of a bug and it was going to get solved. I'm not taking this stuff. Overhaul is one of the most typed language ever. It's very well designed. And the thing I've seen with my code again is I rewrote many things in Rust. The funny thing is I had my Kubernetes driven development done in Node.js TypeScript. And I rewrote it back in 2023, or 2022 or 2023. I rewrote it all in Rust. It's called KDD. Yeah? It's a crate that I put there, and we use that to deploy the thing on Kubernetes. And it was actually like 20% less line of code. Yeah, so in a way, sometimes Rust add code for some stuff, but then it reduces code for other stuff. Yeah, so it's kind of a tricky thing. But the point is, now when I come back to this code, even 6 months or a year later, again, I know where my things are, and it's very nice to, the type system works better, at least for my brain. Yeah, Rust is more mature than Zig. Is still young, yes. And I think, again, Rust has crossed a chasm, yeah, when you have trillion-dollar companies starting saying, we should move to Rust. When we move to Rust, we save 70% bugs. Or like Google say, our code quality is 30% better in Rust, or whatever they say. It's not something that is going to happen again. Yeah, it's like I'm going to make a silly analogy here, but a language is going to be a silly one. So I code and I ski. Yeah, that is the two things I like to do. A language is like a ski resort. Yeah, there's not a new ski resort every couple of years. Yeah, it's things that now, and the more time goes, the less there will be new ski resort because of all the regulation and the complexity of doing ski resorts. And so it's the same thing with the language. I mean, we can create kind of secondary language, and that can be created every 2 years or whatever. But languages that really cross a chasm, there's not much room for them. Yeah. Will you event sourcing? Yes. Yeah. So again, in the architecture here that we have is so I'm using Sketch here. Yeah. So we have this event-based kind of architecture, yeah, where we send events and get events and all this kind of thing. So there's a whole, sorry for people, if I make people seasick. I remove the event, but there's a whole event kind of layer. I think it's within the core. There's a whole event layer that is important. Now, the cool thing with Rust is the event, in a way, is the message bus that they have internally. So we can use this tool to send events back and forth. Yeah. So that is one thing that we can do pretty well. Any other question? I think I answer a lot of questions. Let me go to the full mode here. Any other question, or perhaps some that I missed? Okay. So if there's no any other question, I think I'm going to end this one. This was interesting because it was just unplanned. I didn't plan to do a live, and I was just debugging my stuff because last time I was trying to do the live and I didn't do the things. Yeah. Yes, I agree, and I don't know what to say. I'm saying, but even for myself, architecture first, YouTube last. I would say, be careful about. I've watched Prime and I like him. I think he has a good experience in Netflix. I think he had some good sense of architecture and stuff. I mean, a lot of things is often when he says stuff, I was like, oh yeah, good. He's thought about the stuff and he has a good sense of good architecture and code and stuff. Um, there's other things that, and it's tricky for me too. Yes, when you are trying to do a YouTube channel where you try to have views, it goes a little bit against teaching the right thing, because the right thing is boring. Yeah. What I'm saying is software development. So I have to say in software development, and somehow that's the way I think. It's lame is the new cool. Yeah. So SQL is cool. Yeah. It's not lame. It's cool. And dumb is the new smart. And so the dumb is the new smart means that when you are architecturing, a system like, sorry, when you're architecting a system like that, for example, the whole point. And so, for example, an example of that is you have your web app server where people can access your data and everything. And then the service one here could be one that takes the videos and then frame it into all of these little frames, such as then the service 2 can take these frames and do some AI in it. And then service 3 can take that and generate, a new video or whatever. Yeah, so that is a way that the ping pong kind of work. And the point is, when you make this kind of services, the dumb is the new smart, is that each services should be smart at one thing and dumb at everything else. And so that is kind of the good architecture things. And so the trick of saying, well, I don't like this language, and I like, for me, it's a net value. It's like what I'm saying. I don't believe in truth. I believe in proximity. It's a proximity game. There's no absolute language. There's not things. And so it's a net value. Where do you want to invest your time to have the maximum return for the longest time possible? And I do think that Rust and Zig doesn't even compare. Yeah. Now, it's not saying that Zig is bad. I'm just saying, the language, the maturity, and the momentum is behind Rust. And so that is where it's going to go. Yeah, and it's about storytelling. But the storytelling is tricky, and well, when we say, I don't want this channel here to be about Prime, I don't think when I watch Prime, for example, I think he's very genius. And I do think he knows from his past experience, he knows he had some good sense of good engineering. Yeah. So that I don't think is a funny and everything. It's just that sometimes it's easy, even for me, for all of us, to get emotional about a specific language and things. And when you do YouTube, like for example, for me, I feed my family with my clients and building big apps. I mean, like the apps in the medical space we built was we built two apps actually for the client, one of 300,000 line of code, and then the other one 200,000 line of code. So it's big system. They deployed. We had a 99 point, I think there were 2 or 3 9 SLA. I was the DevOps and the architect and the engineering manager and stuff. So there's a lot of things when you do everything. When you have worked in a company and you did one slice, smart people like Prime because it's super smart. I think they get a good sense of the things, but then when you do a YouTube channel, your coding is not, it's smaller things, yeah? But the nature of the things. Yeah, you cannot spend time in too many places. Yeah, I mean, I will be where this vs that is how the algorithms makes people like Prime money. One thing, and again, I like Prime. There's one that I really like is a Fire Ship, I think. It has this small video, and this guy is super good. And it has high quality, it has a good humor, and usually he says the right thing. I don't know if he's really building big system, but he's a good one and things. And Prime is good as well in his own thing. And we are lucky to have Prime in the ecosystem. I think everything is needed. Yeah. So as long as we know, we do the stuff. I will be interested in a podcast with you, Cassie. And so I'm sorry, but I don't know who is Cassie Muratori and Mori Rocket. But I'm more than happy to have, people can connect me via, Twitter, on Twitter, message me, or email, jeremy.chone@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to have casual kind of chat. Yeah. My only restriction is I don't meet when there's powder in Tahoe. Outside of that, I'm very happy. And if it's a schedule, I'm happy to talk. Okay. So anyway, yes, I don't know. I don't even know how to end the thing if it needs to be ended. But if there's no more question, I would like to thank everybody for coming. That was actually a pretty nice one. Yeah, someone told me, yeah, Mike, you're right. It's nice to have staff. Yeah, the visual and stuff is clear. Sometimes they take time to do, so I'm trying to find a good time to provide content without, minimizing the time, but I like visualization, yeah. And so I would like to say thank you to everybody for joining this live stream, which was actually kind of a bug because I was just testing. And we'll do more of that. I'm starting my membership, but it's not that I'm trying to make everything paid or I'm changing to paid. It's just I had the opportunity to join the membership bootcamp from YouTube. So I joined it and I think it might be interesting. And I might do live as well, public like that, which won't be planned. But I will have live as part of my live stream membership. And then we'll do the topic and I will do a survey before to see what people want to talk about. And then we'll talk about it. But don't worry, my goal is to continue to create content on Rust production. There's a cool one that is I'm going to work on, which is a SQLite and Rust, because SQLite is awesome. And so that is another thing here that I will show. And then we'll have the live stream as well. Okay, hope you like this session. I don't even know how to end it. So I'm going to say the happy coding. Until next one, happy coding. And then I'm going to try to end this one, which is, and stream. It's a big button here. This one, it's easy enough. Okay, see you later. And until next one, happy coding.